Welcome to Who is the Red Queen? A entry into this year's Spooktober visual novel jam, made by a group as you could see from the intro called Fornoki. And if the premise and imagery you're seeing right now doesn't really make it clear, it is very much an Alice in Wonderland story. Alice falls down the rabbit hole into a Wonderland not quite right, and sets out on an adventure in this odd place to find the missing Red Queen, or to find the pieces of the dismembered queen whose body has been strewn across the land. As everything I can look for, multiple endings, multiple multiple bad endings, and really interesting aesthetic. Let's dive right in, shall we? Falling, falling, falling. I was falling. Down the rabbit hole with no start nor end. I was falling. Where had I gone? Where could I go? As if I were forgetting something very important, I fell down, down, and down through a sparkling, shining darkness. Too bright to be dark, too dark to be bright. I must have been chasing after someone, after something. Like a girl whose curiosity was piqued by a rabbit with a watch, I was falling, falling, falling. Down, down, down. Again, again, again. This endless well seemed to lead everywhere, yet nowhere at once. Either the hole extended very deep, or I descended very slow. Was I truly even going downward? Perhaps this was all a dream, a fever dream, or in more words, a fantasy that would be as soon forgotten as it was had. I had just one certainty. I was Alice. Alice was me. Now then, just how long was I supposed to keep falling? The air brushed past my fingers, my cloak ruffling upwards. A quiet humming breeze caressed my cheek. As if I could hear someone's voice, a pleasant voice, a woman's voice. I strained my ears for whispers in the wind. Alice, what a time for madness. Without a bit of fear or vertigo. Should you not have focused on topics more pressing? Like the darkness, or the light. How you couldn't awaken from this dream. But even now you were just falling, falling, falling. What does it matter? A thump thump. I came upon soft grass, and the fall was over. Not a bit hurt, I forced myself to my feet. I like this. Well, that's neat. This is a really cool interface. Quick save, quick load. Save load. It's neat. Above my head, the firmament whence I fell had not a tear in its blue canvas. Down about my eyes, only unfamiliar surrounded me. I started out on an exploratory stroll. Soon I stumbled upon a rabbit who looked like a girl, or a girl who looked like a rabbit. Perhaps the correct answer was that she was both a girl and a rabbit. Not lingering much longer on the species of the rabbit before me, I called out to her. Excuse me? Where was this place? Why was I here? How could I leave to return home? Thought of what to ask her. But she recognized me as soon as I spoke, so my questions were lost in my mouth, unasked. Alice? White Rabbit? Have you seen Her Majesty? Do you know where she's gone? Where she could go? Her Majesty, the Red Queen. She must be taking a vacation of sorts. I only wish that she could have left this little rabbit a note. I'm in a bit of panic, you see. The land can't run without its queen. Please let me know if you catch sight of her. I nodded. Who this Red Queen was, I had not a clue, but a tingling déjà vu. My acceptance of the request let the white rabbit breathe out a sigh of relief. Just as I prepared to pose my own questions, she straightened her back in surprise. I'm afraid I have to go. I'm going to be late. The white rabbit dashed off. Wanted to ask some questions. Never mind that. Follow her, Alice. Although I chased after her with only a moment's pause, when I turned a corner, she was nowhere to be seen. I found myself in a garden meticulously kept. Tailing the rabbit, I barely dashed a few paces. I hadn't realized such a place was so close by. Rather, I hadn't realized I had run this far. A conjecture tickled my mind that this world I fell into was a magical place. One with paths that pointed to one way but twisted to another. What an explanation, much more far-fetched than me just not knowing where I was running. It took a moment to catch my breath. Glancing around, I began my walk around the garden. Flowers and greenery all around, but not a person in sight. This place was beautiful. I wanted to meet the person who made it. Not quite a gardening person myself, I still appreciated a pretty place and felt a swelling excitement to explore what sights could be seen. A reminder of reality then dampened my joyful curiosity. I wanted some answers, a way out, and back home. As pleasant as dreams were, one had to be able to awaken from them before they turned into nightmares. Whether this was a dream or reality had still yet to be seen. Step, step, I walked around. Pop, pop, I peered over the bushes. Soon enough, I discovered the heart of the garden where one might sit for tea. I spotted a white-haired girl in the garden. To amend my previous thoughts, would it be right to say that I rather also appreciated a pretty person? Frivolous thoughts flew from my mind as our eyes met. Her gaze seemed to beckon me over, so I went to speak with her. Are you enjoying the garden? The garden is beautiful. The gardener will be happy to hear that from you. However, if you have come here now, you should be searching for something. We should first introduce ourselves. I am the White Queen. Just like with the rabbit, for reasons unclear to me, I already knew who she was. Here, that should be as good as a name. Your Majesty, my name is Alice. Don't stand on ceremony, Alice. I am not someone you need to speak with, particularly respectfully. Welcome to my garden in Wonderland. Wonderland. It tasted that word on my tongue. I can't remember why or how I'm here. Not this garden, but Wonderland. I was falling. I couldn't remember why I was falling. I was simply falling until I fell no more. I'm sure I've forgotten something very important. I'm really liking this so far, just for there's so many little touches to various sentences that makes this feel like I'm reading a fairy tale. And it's really cool to read so far. Obviously, we're barely 10 minutes into it, but I'm liking those little touches to the dialogue and narration. You needn't force yourself to remember. Some things are better left forgotten. Perhaps it was fated for you to come here. Perhaps something is missing that you must find. This world must appear like a place of dreams. You should find the Red Queen. The missing queen whom the White Rabbit mentioned was the Red Queen. Waited for the White Queen to continue. She hesitated to speak of the Red Queen as if the elusive royal would appear like a ghost behind her as she spoke. I tried to imagine what sort of person the Red Queen was. She will let you return to your own reality. When you meet her, you should be able to find all the answers you are seeking for. As for where she is, that is for you to discover. Do you dislike her? That's a difficult question, Alice. So she's like that. I'll let you judge her yourself. You might learn something new about yourself. Shall I head off to find her now? Why not stay for some tea? Of course I'd love to, but it's not quite afternoon tea time yet. A later time, then. Certainly, to have tea outside of tea time wouldn't do. Won't keep you for too much longer, Alice. I'm sure you'll be able to find that person soon enough. Until later. Later. Waved goodbye to the White Queen and departed from her garden. Glancing back, I saw her gaze linger upon me. There's letters highlighted in both of the song titles we've seen so far. I almost want to go back and see what the first letter was. This one is a C. It's one of those things that feels meaningful. Okay, the first one was an L, so make of that what you will. I stepped onto a twisting path in the forest. I didn't know which way to go to find the elusive Red Queen, turning left and right. To find a queen, I'd thought to seek a castle. However, the rabbit said that the queen was missing, so unless the rabbit had also forgotten something very important, the queen shouldn't have been at the castle. The Red Queen, she seemed like a troubling person. The way the White Queen's face froze, tongue stuttering along, the talk with the Red Queen made me wonder, was the latter queen a tyrant or a fool? The tutor at home liked to talk about kingship of that sort. To me, either or neither were fine. After all, who were the peasantry to affect the mood of a high queen? I hummed and walked along with a skip in my step. Just as I reached a rhythm in my stride, I kicked a little something. An animal that threw me off my beat. I slowed to applaud, my mood a note dampened. Soon I heard the chatter of a girl a few trees away. Seeing not much civilization here in the forest, I followed the voice of the girl. Although she was chatting, I heard her voice alone. Oh. I passed by a few bushes and soon enough found a tea party in the middle of nowhere. At a table set before a tree sat the girl. Hello there, Alice. What did you come here for? Her chatter ceased. Her mismatched eyes pierced through me in its place. There's no room here at the table, so don't take a seat. No room. No room. She moved the puppets on her hand, a sleepy mouse and a mad hare. Looking right to left, I could barely see the ends of the table set for tea. One person in such a large space. Conversely, she almost seemed lonely. There's plenty of room, Hatter. Taking my point, I took a seat in the large armchair across from the Hatter. The chair stunk of flowers as if to clear away the shadow of an unpleasant previous sitter. I sank back into it comfortably. And I kept sinking, before I jolted back up with a shallow gasp. 3 is plenty a crowd. That's rude of you to say, Alice. Not very civil of you to sit down without being invited either. But whatever. Let's just treat you as our extra guest for tomorrow. Not today. Aren't they the same? Yesterday, today, tomorrow? Every day's never a day different. But since I'd rather not deal with it today, we just treat it as for tomorrow. Dormouse and March don't mind. You mentioned 3, but I only see 1. She wiggled the puppets on her hands as if to explain everything. 1 was herself. 2 was the first puppet. 3 was the second puppet. I'm scared Alice might be blind. That's a side effect of being Alice. Don't worry. Don't worry. It's just a side effect of being Alice. The pitch of her voice warped. Don't mind their comments. She is Dormouse, and he, March Hare. She paused as if waiting for me to greet the animal puppets. I waited. She waited. The silence of the conversation bored me, so I relented to the Mad Hatter's wordless request. I was their guest for tomorrow, so a polite guest I decided to be. Well, hello there. I was scared she was deaf as well. Hello there, Alice! Between the puppets, I much preferred the Dormouse. If the puppet could fall asleep, she looked as if she was about to do so. I felt some pity, as that meant the March Hare would speak no more. What were we talking about before? A riddle. Maybe it was this one. Why is a raven like a writing desk? Do you have an answer to that riddle? You're no fun, Alice. Riddles are meant to be solved. Relax and have some wine. There is no wine? You were invited for tea tomorrow, Alice. It is the obligation of the host to offer a guest a drink at tea time. Maybe she was an alcoholic. Maybe. Hatter, I can't in good faith call this time of the day tea time, nor can I call alcohol tea. Details, details. Add some butter. It'll be tea time eventually, so it's tea time now. We're having tea, so it might as well be tea time, don't you think? What'd you come here for anyways? Yeah. Tea time is precisely the time that you have tea. That's the benefits of growing up is deciding that tea time is not a set time of the day, but whatever time you choose to have tea. You're the adult now, you have the power. And you have that realization, and then things get wildly out of hand, and then you've eventually come back around and impose some manner of schedule upon yourself to be reasonable. That was a random digression, I apologize. Although I couldn't quite say that I had come to this tea party with a goal in mind, I figured I might as well tell her. I'm searching for the Red Queen. Her brow contorted as she took a sip of her tea. Rabbit sat down for just that moment. Dumping the tea away and rinsing the cup, she poured herself another drink. Oh, her. The Hatter placed her lips to the rim of the teacup and stared at me. A minute passed, all 60 seconds consisting of staring, before she ducked down under the table as if to find an item and popped back up again. Stay and chat for a little. I'll help you with a little something regarding Her Majesty. The Hatter poured me a cup of tea and slid over a plate of sandwiches. The plate hurtled toward me, forcing me to hurriedly grab it lest sandwiches spilled all over my lap. Luckily, the cup of tea arrived much more calmly. I took a taste, finding Earl Grey. Just give me a drink, bartender. Phew, cup of tea flying across the table at mock speed. Is it tomorrow already? At the very least, it wasn't time for afternoon tea. If I knew I would have tea now, I would have stayed a little longer to have some with the White Queen as well. It was not that people couldn't have tea outside of afternoon tea, but it was the principle of things. If people drank tea any time of the day, they would drink it all day, because it's tea. I sipped some more, enjoying the citrusy flavor of this black tea. Today is tomorrow for yesterday, don't you think? And that she doesn't think, that would have been rude of you to ask. She's just normal. Orthogonal. I'm certainly sitting up quite straight. Regarding the Red Queen, do you have some news about her? I'd say I have some business with her instead. Something to do with meat and flesh and all the other red things that a Red Queen might have to do with. Aren't you a hatter? Yes. Not a butcher. Unless your meat is made out of hat. While talking about all things unappetizing, I took a bite out of a sandwich filled with an ambiguous color. A milky sweetness melted in my mouth. I tasted some sort of fruit inside. Maybe it was mango or kiwi or strawberry. Satisfied with the pleasant sweetness, I took another sip of tea. This tea and these sandwiches are delicious. Thank you, Alice. You made them? Compliments to you, then. Wow, such flattery. Since you put me in a good mood, I guess we can go ahead with Her Majesty's matter. A matter for a hatter? A hatter's matter? A Mad Hatter's matter. Mad Hatter's matter with Her Majesty. Say that 5 times fast. In fact, she's been sitting here with us the whole time. I sat up even straighter in confusion. Glancing around, I saw no queens in sight. Not a human nor animal besides the two of us here. The Hatter rolled a chair over and pulled a cloth over from the chair's holdings. Ta-da! Oh, dismembered. That's concerning. Just taking notes here. Nausea ran up my spine. The chair sat a chunk of meat dressed up in tattered human clothes. Still dripping red, the flesh seemed to ripple, undulating. Was it rotting? Was it still alive? My head spun as I squinted at the thing. This meat, no, this thing resembled a human torso. Half a neck and chopped off limbs, dolled up in what could have been fancy clothes. This was surely human flesh. I sensed an odd familiarity to the torso, but also felt like I was looking at it from an incorrect angle. This was the torso of a regal woman. This was raw human flesh. This is the Red Queen. An inappropriate question flitted across my mind. Could we consider it as sitting if it didn't have legs? I supposed yes. I thought you said you weren't a butcher, Hatter. We definitely couldn't consider this a hat. Having just eaten, the strawberry taste in my mouth turned to a meaty texture like raw pork. I could almost taste sweet, rotten fat. I swallowed. Wondered if the Hatter wanted to make me sick. Yes, I'm a Hatter. I closed my eyes and rubbed the bridge of my nose. Too distracted by the surprise. The feeling of my fingers almost felt like wet ground meat, even though I was sure that my digits were still attached to my palm. The image lingered uncomfortably behind my eyelids, not with disgust, but with another inexplicable emotion. A negative one, for sure. I looked at the torso again, and it seemed so still. I saw exposed bone and a shattered trachea. The cut must have not been one wholly clean, and with a blade sharpened not quite enough, yet also dulled not quite enough. Yes, this was the Red Queen. I knew not why I knew, but a voice in the back of my head told me that this was the Red Queen, a part of the Red Queen. I'm afraid Her Majesty can't speak right now. The Hatter stirred her tea and popped a bite-sized sandwich into her mouth, munching happily. Don't look like that, Alice. But the Hatter didn't dismember Her Majesty. Yes, Hatter is innocent. Since only the Hatter spoke up in defense of herself, I wasn't particularly inclined to believe her. Whether or not she did kill the Red Queen, the end result sat before me. What should I do now? I murmured in my uncertainty at this dead end aloud. What do you mean? All you have to do is find all the other pieces. If you have anything you need Her Majesty for, all you need do is put her back together. Have you forgotten, Alice? That sounded mad. So mad I wanted to laugh. This is Wonderland, after all. All I need to do is find the pieces. That was right, Alice. That was all you need to do. It would either be terribly simple or terribly hard. I hope that no one had fed the Red Queen to the pigs or minced her up for a patty. That'd be morbid. Regardless, all I really needed was a head and the torso if I wanted to talk to her, to ask her about the secrets to returning home. May I take the body with me? Alice, you were a civilized girl. Did you really want to lug around a piece of meat like you were some meat seller, selling to the cannibals? No, that wouldn't be fair, don't you think? Once you find most of her parts, let's just say, the limbs, I'll give you a special present and help you out again. She patted a box off to the side of the table. The box was just big enough for a cat, or a cake, or maybe something like that. Like a hat. Or a hat holder. A head, perhaps. Of course, don't peek or try to find out what the present is. I wouldn't be surprised like that, and I'll be very, very upset if you cheat. That smile on her face, I couldn't see her upset. Only muddled sincerity came through her voice. Now then, I've got to grab something off the stove before it burns. The Hatter got up from her seat and walked away. Here I was alone with the Red Queen's flesh. I was missing all 4 limbs and a head, so to make her whole I would need to find 5 parts. I hoped that my search would be easy. Seeing as the Hatter was nowhere in sight, I contemplated a decision regarding that curious box on the table. Well, let's save the game. And Welcome back to it. I shook my head. Instead of antagonizing the Hatter needlessly, I decided to take another sip of tea. I would see what was inside the box eventually. The Hatter returned soon enough. In her hand was a hammer, glowing bright with heat. She checked it to the side with a thump and let the metal sizzle on the ground. What was the hammer for? Does a hammer need a reason to be? Anyways, go. Go ahead and try and find some of the Red Queen's body. An arm, a head, maybe two. Just bring them back here for me to attach to this. He pointed at the torso. It'll still be tea time when you come back. Let's just count you as an extra guest for the next tomorrow as well. To be exact with time, now was not tea time. I suppose there's not much else to do here. I took my empty cup of Earl Grey and lifted myself up from the armchair. For what it was worth, I quite enjoyed this odd-hour tea. Shaking my legs just to make sure they hadn't fallen asleep, I started to leave. Until later. Auf Wiedersehen. She leaned back into her chair and made a lazy wave my way. Somehow, she looked lonely. That's fair. See that. We turned to another forest path, walking forward and forward. Moving for a while, I realized that I had no idea where I was going. In simpler words, I was lost. I walked around in a few circles before looking upward. Oh, I saw a cat. Hello there. A cat who resembled a girl who resembled a cat, leisurely stood on the tall branch of a tree. Unlike the white rabbit, this cat, the Cheshire cat, couldn't help but wonder if she was actually neither a cat nor a girl, and was just pretending to be one. I met her cat eyes, nodding in silent greeting. Her grin stretched across her face as she stared right back. Sharp teeth filled her mouth and claws adorned her hands. This was probably a cat. Cheshire? The flame that was her tail flickered, and she hopped down to meet me closer. I don't suppose you could tell me which way to go. I posed a silly question that I expected no answer for. After all, I was asking a cat for directions. Depends on where you want to go. To my surprise, I received a response. To find the Red Queen. Ah, the crazy one. Are you sure you'd prefer not to go with the nice one? What I'm searching for is the Red Queen. All right, the Mad Queen. And again, we're all mad around here. It is except for Her Majesty the White Queen. She's too sad to be mad. You're looking for the Red Queen. Up, up, down, down, left, right might help. Self-awareness, Alice. Self-awareness. The Cheshire cat vanished into thin air. Soon enough, she reappeared. Let's go to the White Queen instead. Maybe you'll find something along the way. She started to fade away again before popping back. I forgot to ask, how's the Hatter doing? She seems to be fine. It's still tea time over there. It's always tea time with that one. Oh, third time she disappeared, leaving a grin lingering in the air before that too vanished. This was a grin without a cat, instead of a cat without a grin. The third time was the charm. The cat did not return. I can't say I've seen a cat quite like that before. And again, Cheshire wasn't really a cat. Walking a few tree lengths more, I mulled over the odd advice she gave. Obviously, we gotta go up, up, down, down, left, right. I tried to remember just what the Cheshire cat had said, speaking the pattern of directions spelled loud to a beat. Up, up, down, down, left, right. I feel as if I had missed a few items. That was all that the cat had given. I backtracked to the position where I had met the cat and followed the recommended directions. Soon enough, I found myself at a crossroad. I saw no limbs nor heads in sight. Left was labeled right. Right was labeled left. With wrongly written signboards, I chose at random on where to go next. Every few meters, I found a new signboard with its own quaintly marked arrow. Whether or not they led to the right place was another issue. I slowed my pace to read the signs and followed them along. Today is a rainy day. I didn't know which genius thought to put a forecast on a wooden sign at the side of the road, but I followed the direction to go right regardless. The sky, not a drop of rain in sight. Warning, cliff ahead. As it happened, neither was there a cliff ahead. Watch out for dragons. Looked for the dragons? But the dragons did not arrive. Shameful. At some point, the text on the signs turned to insults. Oh, that's mean. Fool. You don't even know who you are. Now you're just being mean. Stop following these signs. How many of these will you read? Walked and walked and walked. At the end of the final sign in the chain, I reached a clearing in the forest where I spotted the white rabbit talking with a limb. Majesty, Your Majesty's left arm, please. I blinked. I blinked again. Rubbing my eyes, I saw the same image. The white rabbit seemed just about to prostrate herself to a living, moving arm. This arm, despite being an arm, had taken the higher position. The ground here is dirty. You needn't crawl here. Shall I take you back to the palace? Would you prefer to go to the garden or the courtroom? In fact, do you happen to know where Her Majesty is? The arm smacked the white rabbit. Oh no! But I silently observed, the arm noticed me and began to crawl over, one handful of grass at a time. Moved like a snake, like a worm, like a piece of flesh and bone that shouldn't have been able to move. Its writhing struggle sent a shiver up my spine. Well, nothing to see here, just a fucking arm wriggling through the grass. I didn't know if I should pick it up or kick it away. It did neither, and it reached my feet. The arm proceeded to climb up my leg, up my cloak, clinging like some sort of dirty parasite, making its slow way up, until I pushed past my building disgust to hold it in my hand instead. The flesh felt cold in my palm. I sensed no heartbeat at the wrist. Alice! Her Majesty's arm seems to have taken a liking to you. If you find Her Majesty, please return the limb to her and tell her that her rabbit did her best. I pray she hasn't been in any trouble. A limb coming off isn't an everyday occurrence. She made quite the understatement. Yes, of course. How did you know it was the Red Queen's arm? I would recognize Her Majesty's limbs anywhere. Do you admire her very much? Yes, of course. I respect Her Majesty very much. She united Wonderland into this kingdom and kept peace with a watchful gaze on the criminal populace. She is a decisive ruler and holds an agreeable worldview. This should be her divine right to rule Wonderland. I've heard a cat call her mad. A dangerous expression flashed through the white rabbit's eyes for barely a second. The Cheshire Cat is a known problem element here. If Her Majesty is mad, then such madness is in essence brilliance. One man's madness is another man's brilliance, I suppose. It all depends on what side of the fence that madness targets, I suppose. If that madness works in favor, it's brilliance. In your favor, it's brilliance. If that madness works in your favor and protects you, it's brilliant. If it works against you, it's utter despicable madness. Although I may not always be fated to be a favored courtier, to be an aid to her is my greatest honor. I cannot be White Rabbit without Her Majesty. Yes, that should be how I view Her Majesty. I gave the rabbit's impromptu speech a short round of applause, balancing the detached arm in the crook of my elbow. The rabbit became flustered. She must also like you very much. Well, she did get mad at you and slap you, so I don't know how much that's true. All rulers have their dissidents and supporters. A certain man once said that a ruler was better feared than loved if she could not be both. Despite all that the White Rabbit said, I knew little more about the Red Queen. The Red Queen is the ruler of all this land. What's your job, White Rabbit? Yes, she is the highest ruler of Wonderland. We deal with a little bit of everything. Administrative matters, legal matters, and the personal matters of important people. Since we've met a few times, I could say that I'm important, couldn't I? That's right, Alice? To my tepid jest, I received a response that made me pause. White Rabbit took out a watch and jumped in surprise upon looking at me at the time, quickly returning the watch to her pocket. Is it this time already? I'm afraid I must be off again if that will be all. Thank you, Alice. Hurriedly bowing a few times, she dashed off back to work. Having obtained one limb, I searched around for another. Before I knew it, the day passed. I looked toward the sky where the sun had begun to set. Letting out a yawn, I realized I needed a place to sleep for the night. I thought back to the parties who had helped me on my adventure to gather the Red Queen's dismembered parts. Surely I could find one of them. I don't really have a choice here, so back to Hatter we go. Hatter's tea time gets a question mark. Interesting. I headed back to the Hatter's place. As before, I found her at a table full of tea stuffs. She nursed a cup of tea and waved at me upon spotting me. Just in time for tea, Alice. From the sky, tea time should have already passed. Perhaps this was more like supper time, so I only flashed her a smile without saying anything. I've returned with a limb. Ah, congratulations. I handed her the Red Queen's limb, which began to move upon entering the Hatter's hand. Pulling it away from herself, the Hatter seemed to think of what to do with it next. She kicked the dog cage out from under a chair. Taking the metal hatch open, she tossed the limb into it and quickly flicked the cage shut again. Ah, sit down. I'd be a poor host if I didn't let you sit. I plopped down into the armchair. This was my chair now. I glanced around and found I didn't see the two puppets that the Hatter wore on her hands earlier in the day. Where are your friends? I gestured with my hands. They've gone home for a bit. Watch lives all the way over there in a house with ears. As for whose ears they are, I haven't got a clue. Are you hungry for rodent, Alice? No. If you say so, Alice. Poured me a cup of tea and slid the tea, cup, and saucer over to me, nearly spilling it over my lap. Soon after came another plate. On the plate was steak and vegetables. Wow. I sure hope this isn't a rodent, is it? It's something else. I sure hope it isn't, you know. Hatter didn't continue, but glanced over at the Queen, Red Queen's flesh. You know. You know. My eyes followed the path of her gaze, not spotting any steak-sized slabs of meat sliced off from the torso of the Queen I sought. I let out a sigh. Taking a knife and fork, I cut the steak and moved a piece to my mouth. Yeah, it's definitely not, This is definitely not cooking companions. That's what that game was called. It tasted like beef. It doesn't have to be beef. Compliments to the chef? Why, thank you. We ate together. For a Hatter, her table manners with the forks and knives were impeccable. But each time I thought to compliment them, she went and said something odd again. The Hatter was a mystery to unravel. The Hatter seems really charming. I don't have a place to stay for the night, so I wanted to ask if you would put up with me for the night. I put up with you all the time. What difference does night make? Where I come from, people sleep at night. Sleep? You can sleep underneath a table, or spread a blanket on the ground, or just sleep on that armchair you're sitting in now. It isn't sleep when you pretend to be dead like everyone else. Yeah? Is this why you don't sleep? The Hatter had terrible bags under her eyes. As I doubted she slept too much, she could only have been sleeping too little. Look at the time. It's really time to sleep. Napping at tea time will destroy your inner clock, don't you know? Of course you don't nap. It's always tea time. It's never bedtime. Morning, afternoon, evening. It's all tea time. It's better not to sleep. Exactly, I just said that. I thought you didn't care about time. Mad Hatter gestures at the clock, except all the numbers on the clock are replaced with teacups. Gee, would you look at the time? Time doesn't care about me. Are you perhaps afraid of sleeping? What do you think, Alice? She poured herself a drink from her bottle into her teacup. I turned to look at the bottle, which was in no way for tea. I couldn't read the jumbled words scrawled across its label, so I couldn't help but ask, is that actually alcohol? A tea. Isn't it alcohol? Tea. She drank her tea, and I did mine. The conversation turned to silence. I shouldn't have pushed and upset my dear host. I wanted to pet her head and apologize, where she could drink or sleep as she wanted. As I reached out, the hatter recoiled. No touching during tea time. She pushed her chin back for the table, taking the chance to move away. Then she dipped underneath the tablecloth, rummaging through her stuff with a rustling noise. When she popped back out, she held a blanket, which she tossed my way. Did you want to pretend to be dead right now? Go, play dead. Catching it in my arms, I smelled a sweet scent from the soft blanket. The sky was dark. I started to feel sleepy, hugging the blanket a little tighter. I had experienced a long day after all, so perhaps it was time to go to bed. Good night, Hatter. I wondered if she was mad. If she would respond, but she did. Good night, Alice. I leaned back comfortably in the armchair and began to sink. Sinking. Contrary to my earliest expectations, I didn't keep sinking forever. When I looked up the sky, I found I couldn't fall asleep anymore. I didn't recognize the stars, the constellations that adorn the dark heavens. Tracing their infinite sparkles, I wondered who they stood for. I wanted to understand what was hidden past those mismatched eyes of the Hatter. While counting the stars, I eventually fell asleep. I dreamed, falling. Next day and the day after, I continued my search for the Red Queen's parts. Remembering that Cheshire Cat mentioned the White Queen, I decided to give the Queen a second visit. I thought that I could easily replicate the route to her garden, having only recently been there. However, the more I walked, the more apparent it became that I was lost. Past that tree to the right a handful of times already. I was going in circles, getting nowhere closer to that beautiful garden and its equally pretty owner. I headed aside and chose a bush at random to walk through, instead of following a path. My cloak saved me from being scratched by the leaves and branches of the bushes. I came out on the other side to a particularly tall tree and a large bird cage. I spotted the White Queen inside the birdcage. Behind her was a limb. A leg. Hello. Hello. We meet again, Alice. I hadn't expected that I would be trapped here again. I'm a little embarrassed that you're seeing me like this. I contemplated just asking for the leg and leaving. No, that would be a terribly foul thing to do, especially to a pretty person like her. Throw it away, it almost seemed like a good idea to leave a pretty bird locked up in a cage all for herself. After all, how could you catch her? How would you catch her if you let her go free? Is this the Red Queen's right leg? So it would appear. To find the Red Queen, you may have to find her parts as well. Even so, she should be able to help you find your way back home. I'm sorry, Alice. Don't apologize. The key to my prison is atop the towering tree. Would you help me open this cage, Alice? Yes, of course. Agreeing to the request, I walked over the tall tree of the White Queen. The White Queen gestured towards. How tall it was, I couldn't say. The tall tree. I angled my head and squinted. I could see the glimmering of a silver key at a high branch above. I circled the tree. Front and the back, the sides left and right. They all looked equally hard to climb. As I pondered on how to scale the tree, a little bird approached. Chirp, chirp! With all the talking of animals and not quite animals in Wonderland, I had an inkling that this one might speak as well. Perhaps it spoke French like a French bird. Bonjour. Bonjour. Unfortunately, I knew little French. My practice had grown rusty. So much that the tutors would be ashamed when I tried to pull out at least one more phrase. Where est majesté? Chirp. Just said the wrong words. The poor bird began to tremble. Parlez-vous anglais?
Yes. Chirp. Cats. No cats, please. What are you doing? Chirp.
Trying to get that key up there. What are you doing, little bird?
Chirp, just having lots of fun every day. Not doing anything in particular. Know that the Red Queen, Her Majesty, is missing. Wonderland is so much more wonderful. We can play and frolic as we want. Chirp. Annie Bird got in trouble for breaking Her Majesty's laws. And now there's no more Annie Bird. Chirp. So sad. Majesty was so scary. Telling me, right? Chirp. Look like a nice person, Chirp. Much nicer than her.
Oh, I see.
I'll help you with the key, Chirp.
Puffing out its little chest, the bird flapped its wings and took off upwards to the sky. It flew, but soon enough became tired. Not reaching the key on the tree, the bird folded and floated back down. It dipped its head in disappointment.
Sorry, I couldn't do it, Chirp.
Save or kill the animals. Pet the bird. Don't worry about it. I rubbed the little bird's head, causing it to peek up at me, with its large, round eyes glittering in surprise. After the failed first attempt at the key, I returned to the White Queen's side. She looked fitting in the cage, pretty, like a flower preserved forever in the glass. Again, I thought that she was beautiful. Really, she was beautiful. That's true, Alice. Even so, I couldn't let her stay trapped, not to mention the Red Queen's leg. I wasn't able to find a way up. Do you have any ideas of what I should do, White Queen? Over there are some mushrooms. If you eat the ones to the left, you will grow. If you eat the ones to the right, you will shrink. I think they will be helpful. Magic mushrooms? Oh yeah. I was hesitant to eat mushrooms picked from unknown wilderness. I felt that I could trust the White Queen. Why? I didn't know. Well, this is Wonderland, isn't it? I had forgotten something important. A feeling of forgetting tingled in the back of my mind whenever I saw the White Queen. Finding the mushrooms she pointed out, I faced a choice. Contrary to logic, I'm gonna go the not obvious route and shrink. I ate a right mushroom and immediately began to shrink. The world around me swelled in size. I was afraid I would shrink to nothing, but I soon stopped shrinking. Must have been the size of a doll. Looking upwards, I found that the key upon the tree was even further away. I hadn't quite thought my decision through. A gust of wind blew past. Another bird appeared, towering over me. The bird who previously helped me also looked large, but this new arrival outsized my little friend.
Hello, Chirp. I heard you need some help. I hadn't thought you were going to be this small, but whatever works. Never know when them humans around here, Chirp.
I paused for a moment to take in this new bird. I should have been so surprised anymore when the bird spoke, so I decided to take it in stride and enjoy the offer of aid where given. I need to get the key up there.
Well, that's probably a bit hard for you, ain't it? Since you're so chirping tiny. You were nice to Birdie over there, so I'll let you ride my back and we can go get that key of yours together. Chirp, how about that?
Ah, did I actually make the right decision? I suppose if we don't spare the bird, we obviously this bird will not save us, and that might be a dead end. Good. I climbed onto the bird's back, admiring the look of its feathers up close. I made myself comfortable and grabbed onto its neck.
Hold on tight, buddy.
Flapping its wings, the bird began to fly. Whoosh! The wind flew past me, throwing my hair into disarray. My cloak fluttered behind me wildly. In a few moments we reached the key at the top of the tree. I grabbed it, placing my arm through the loop to hold it, while riding the bird. The key was heavy, a silver thing almost as big as me. I descended and I dropped the key to the ground. Thank you for the assistance.
Welcome, Chirp. Don't expect a free ride again. I'm gonna grab Birdie and go, so have fun with your own thing, tiny human.
The bird left with its smaller friend. I tugged the key over to where the great queen sat, breathing heavily when I finally walked the full distance with the weight in my hands. The key I now had, but the cage I could not open. I was much too small. The magic will wear off. In the meanwhile, would you accompany me to chat, Alice? That may be for the best. I would have to wait until I reverted back to my old size to open the door. Is the invitation for tea sometime still open? Yes, always. And shall I ask about what sort of foods and tea you would like to drink to see what I might expect? What's your favorite tea? White tea. Do you prefer black tea still? How did you know? We chatted for a while about tea. At some point, the conversation turned to flowers. Perhaps it was that she felt ambivalently on floral teas. You're welcome to visit the garden any time. I couldn't find the way to the garden today. Perhaps getting lost had been for the better, as I found her in the end. Yes, that happens when I'm not there, but Wonderland should lead you my way if you think of me. At least for you, Alice. I have nowhere to be but the garden. She paused, looking at something in the distance that I could not see. Would you believe me if I told you I can see the future? I looked her in the eyes, and I ascertained a calm surety. I didn't feel that she would lie, and I couldn't quite believe her words either. I wondered what I had forgotten, what I was doubting. Rather than answer, I decided to play along. Can you change the future you see? Why do you ask? Otherwise, isn't it lonesome? I don't believe that the future is predestined, but the solitude of such a power would also be the fate of a queen in this world. Her words sounded contradictory. Even for the Red Queen. Especially for the Red Queen. The White Queen spoke of fate as if still trapped by something more than just this birdcage. Couldn't quite understand. We talked a little longer. I felt a tingling up my arms and began to revert to my usual size. The world warped and finally popped back into its proper place. I twirled around to check that all was well. Identifying no issues, I picked up the key that I dropped to the ground at some point and inserted it into the lock of the White Queen's birdcage. With a smooth click, the cage unlocked. I opened the door. White Queen stumbled out of the birdcage. Her legs still wobbly from sitting in the cage for so long, she let me hold her steady till she rebalanced herself. Thank you. You're welcome. I'll have to return to the garden now, but my invitation is always open, Alice. I'll see you later, if you're willing. She had to be the Red Queen's leg. Freed from the birdcage, the White Queen departed to return to the garden. Wandering around some more, I returned to the Hatter's place with the second limb in hand. The day came to an end, but the Hatter's clock remained at tea time. She was arguing with her own hand puppets about some sort of song, some rendition of Twinkle Twinkle. The hair on her hand was flung back and forth. I waited out to seeing as she started laughing by herself halfway through. Apparently, she couldn't sing. Once her shoulders stopped shaking, the Hatter turned to me. Alice, you voyeur. I see you've brought a second one. That one is 1, and this one is 2. Good work. The Hatter clapped her wrists half a dozen times. Alice, won't you join us for tea again today? Hatter made scones.
It has butter.
Thank you for the invitation. Dormouse? Upon my response to the Dormouse, she immediately brightened up. Oh! If it would make the Hatter happy, I didn't see why not. Just play along. Leg. Leg. Setting aside her puppet friends, she extended a open palm towards me. Proceeded to commit Lèse-majesté by tossing the limb over the Hatter's tea table to her. Took a seat in my armchair, seeing her clumsily catch it in her arms. At my seat there was already a cup of tea prepared. With her free hand, the Hatter opened up the dog cage and retrieved the other limb. Do you need any help with that? I have everything under control. Without another pause, the Hatter stuck the limbs onto the Red Queen's torso. Flesh sounded with a squelch as the muscle, skin, and bone began to knit into place. Still a red line remained where the limbs connected. Took a bite of the scone. As the Hatter said, it had butter. The Red Queen's incomplete body twitched. Something squirmed under the skin. I spread some clotted cream and jam onto the scone. The rich blend of sweetness made me wonder where she got the jam. It was very red. Ow! A single arm grabbed at the Hatter, smacking as it squirmed. The Hatter kicked the incomplete Red Queen, rendering the limbed hunk of meat paralyzed with shock. The Hatter forced its limbs off. Oh! A bit of blood and something else dripped onto the ground. Gripping the writhing limbs in her hands, the Hatter popped open the dog cage door with her feet and chucked them in. A thud. Into the cage the arm and leg went. Good scones. Thank you. You mentioned you also had some business with the Red Queen, Hatter, but what was it? Something to do with red, something to do with flesh. I realized that I didn't quite know. A personal matter, Alice. I'd prefer you if you didn't pry. I was the one gathering the pieces, so of course I wanted to know. But again, the Hatter couldn't just as well put the corpse together herself. The better question was how she obtained that first chunk of meat. But I doubted she would answer. I was curious. After all, not every Hatter keeps the Red Queen's dismembered body at their table, much less treats it like you do. White Rabbit is searching for the Red Queen right now, you see. And the Red Queen is right here. At least, part of her was. No one likes White Rabbit. Why didn't you tell her, Alice? Well, I didn't feel like it. The White Rabbit was boring. I had the feeling that telling her anything about the corpse sitting with us wouldn't help me much. You've saved me from the dungeon. In that dark, dank place, a hat's not enough for the cold. Dungeons here aren't for keeping, but for killing. I see. Let's commit Lèse-majesté together. Surely the Red Queen will forgive us for piecing her together. I'm really curious what that means now. That's it. Oh. The insulting of a monarch or other ruler. Treason. I much prefer this Mad Hatter. No, Alice, this is much closer to blasphemy. You have no choice but to beg the wrathful god for forgiveness, don't you know? I couldn't help but think of Osiris, the judge of the dead, cut to pieces by his own brother. Even a god king, rather a god queen, could be chopped up and rendered helpless. Exodia. Is that possible? The Tudors would be proud of me for remembering. Is that so? A good word for you, Hatter. I offered a hand to shake. Seeing her hesitation, I expected her to reject my outstretched hand, but she instead grabbed my finger with an expression filled with uncertainty. I thought that she would try to pull my finger off. However, she only gripped me weakly and shook it up and down before letting go once more. Something. She was a bit gloomier for the time after. Doesn't strike me as a rather contact averse. Night fell and another day ended. What did I dream of? I must have forgotten. Only 2 more limbs and a head remained. I continued on my adventure to collect the Red Queen so that I could finally meet her and find a way back home. Step, step, step. Walked around this upside-down world. In between my explorations of Wonderland, I chatted with the Hatter, and she made a certain inquiry. What do you want to go back to at home? What indeed? Alice, what was waiting for you at home? Counted off my fingers. 2 sisters, 2 cats, a large empty home, books, and tutors. My sisters, Lori and Edie, I was not particularly close. The older Lorena and the younger Edith, intelligent, Lorena, and precocious Edith. They seem to live in their own world apart from Alice. I preferred the cats. A white cat and a black cat. The former was cute, little beauty like the white queen, and the latter, a little devil. As for the books, our library seemed endless. It's so many books that I could drown. A pile had collapsed onto me. I was dying, suffocating under the pages so terribly that I fell into Wonderland. My tutors would be so mad that if the books were ruined. Oof. That's a painfully telling statement. It winced at a phantom sting in the back of my legs. The poor ruler could already see it go red. That was my world, a boring, normal, plain world. Animals didn't talk, and corpses didn't move. I hadn't need to think of much at all. It was Alice, and that place was Alice's place. I was walking around searching for clues for where the next limbs or even head could be. I heard the sound of conversation. Uh-oh. I followed the noise and found the oddest pair. A rabbit and a cat. We're gonna leave off here, actually. A decent amount of progress. Got 2 out of 5 limbs. If we manage to draw the other 3 limbs, we win the game. Obviously. But this is really intriguing. I have 2 major thoughts about this. One that just came to me with that last bit of narration about Alice's family. Like maybe there's some connection with Alice's family and the inhabitants of Wonderland, so to speak. On the other hand, maybe this is like Alice's world, and all the inhabitants know of her because they're all aspects of her in some way. Like, perhaps I'm basing this too much on the prospect of that one choice where you're given a chance to kill the bird. And the depiction of the Red Queen as a devil, a mad ruler, evil to some extent. And with obviously the Mad Queen being currently in a sealed, broken state. While simultaneously, Alice seemingly missing part of her memory. I feel like there's a connection there. We'll see where that goes next time. We will see and find out, truly, who is the Red Queen. Until next time, until then, thanks for watching.